So, just like last week, I'm just going to start off with discussing a few things that have just happened in the news. So this is stuff that's basically just come out or been publicly discussed within the last week since the last time I saw you. So as it turns out, a lot of Netgear routers, or routers if you prefer, have software vulnerabilities in them. So I mean, I know in the UK, a lot of the times when we sign up to a telco for an ISP, they provide a router. And usually it's just like a branded thing. So it might say Sky on the side, but it will still be one of these main brands. In other countries like in America or in Australia, it's a lot more common that you'd go out and actually buy your own router. But Netgear is one of the big ones, and basically if you've got network access to one of these, you can attack it and get all sorts of information. So for example, if you had local area network, like LAN access to it, or someone stupid enough to set it up so that it's connected to the internet in a way that you can get to the actual IP address from the internet, then you can basically attack it and discover all the details you need in order to get the login details for the wireless network and the administrator passwords and things for the router. So it's a 0-day, so there's no fix at the moment available. So a proof of concept exploit code was posted to the full disclosure mailing list recently. So this is a problem that is, well, I imagine it'll get fixed soon now that it's publicly available, but the researcher wasn't getting a response from the vendor, so he went public with the details in order to try and get the vendor to actually do something about it and fix it. So that's happened. WhatsApp, anyone here use WhatsApp? Show of hands, go on. Yeah, okay. So privacy issues, they've had a bunch of privacy issues in the past, including like photos being available when they're not supposed to be and things like that, but like to people that they're not supposed to be available to. And this isn't really new, but there's a new proof of concept code being released so that you can basically visualize other people's details. So even if you aren't, I don't know, I've never actually used WhatsApp, so you're not friended or you haven't given someone permission to see your status details, but anyone can see whenever you go online or offline, regardless how you set your privacy details. And you can access profile pictures and things, status messages, but that's only if they've actually set it to everyone. And you can see other people's privacy settings and things. So obviously that's not ideal, and hopefully now that there's proof of concept code out there, that'll encourage WhatsApp to actually fix that specific problem. But again, it's not new. People have known about that specific problem for a while, but the company just hadn't got around to actually doing anything about it. So again, someone's released some code that is intended to get them to fix it. Firefox web browser is going to start requiring all browser extensions to be signed by Mozilla, so the company that are the gatekeepers or the owners of Firefox. So Firefox is all open source software, and it's a really important project for everyone, I guess, on the internet to have an open web browser. But the idea is that if you wanted to write an extension for Firefox, you will now need Mozilla to sign off on it, basically. And it's not going to cost any money for them to do that, but it does take away some freedom. But the security argument is that you can do a lot of damage with a Firefox extension. So you could create a Firefox extension that basically does all sorts of malicious things to people's internet connections and things. So this is designed to try and secure it, but then the argument against it is, well, I thought this was an open platform. It doesn't sound like they're even going to go down the Android route, where you can basically, it gives you an option to opt in to allowing apps that aren't through the Play Store or whatever. So that's one of the options on Android. So you've got that freedom. It has some security risks, but if you want to, you can install other apps. So the argument is maybe Firefox should just make it an option for people instead of just declaring that this is the new way. But that's happened. A fake bank in China. So it's not just like an online scam, it's a scam. Someone actually built a bank, had people behind the tellers, and they had people serving, and they had all the little nice looking computer screens around the office, and everything looked very professional, like it looked like an actual building that was a bank. And people would sign up, and they were offering, too good to be true, as it turns out, 2% a week interest rates. And so people signed up. There was a case where one person had put over, I think it was over $1 million worth of like US dollars worth, which I understand better than the Chinese currency. And basically after, I think it was a few days or something, the interest stopped happening, and then tried to find out about it, and basically couldn't get his money back. And they have detained 4 people, so it'll be interesting to see what happens, because obviously there's people talking to customers and things, but it's not a real bank. I think they were saying it was like a co-op or something, so it wasn't like they were just trying to come up with some loophole, but so that they weren't actually doing anything wrong. But yeah, quite interesting. US law enforcement looking through walls without warrants. So there's equipment that was developed for basically the current wars that are happening, or wars on terror or whatever. And it basically will allow you to see 50 feet through walls and brick and concrete ones, and to detect where people are. And so it's battlefield technology. It's kind of found its way into civilian policing. There's over 50 police agencies, including FBI and various other police agencies and things. And apparently, in some cases, they haven't got warrants and things. So there's obviously privacy issues there. If you don't have a warrant, then should they be able to see how many people are inside a house, for example? And I'm sure they would be able to make arguments that it's a good idea, but obviously that's what warrants are for, to make sure. Cyber attack that caused physical damage. Again, all of this stuff is stuff that's happened in the last week. So, or this happened a while ago, but we've only found out about it within the last week. So there was an attack on a steel mill in Germany. They basically managed to break into the system using spear phishing, so targeted emails at employees getting access to the network, and then once they've got access to the network, they can basically get access to more computers on the network and get their way to industrial control systems and SCADA systems and things like that, and then managed to basically do things so that the blast furnace couldn't be properly shut down, and it resulted in massive damage. They haven't said exactly what happened, but it's caused physical damage from an online attack, and there's only been a handful of instances where that's actually happened so far. So it is quite noteworthy that this is an example of a computer-based attack that's had real physical damage. If you own a Samsung Smart TV, you might want to start being careful what you say around your house, because Samsung TVs, the ones that do voice commands and things, if you've got the voice command feature active, it actually sends what you've said off to their servers without even any encryption, apparently. So it just sends your voice recordings off to Samsung for processing to see whether or not it's a command. Obviously some privacy issues there, and I think it might be doing something like the Google Android device where you say "Okay Google" or whatever, and then it starts listening for commands. There might be something like that where it triggers it to start sending information, but it does say in the terms and conditions of using your Samsung TV that you bought that it might send it, including some of the things you might have said just before the command and some things afterwards. So it's like, they record a bunch of stuff, send it off to the internet. Then again, if you're using a lot of those types of services, the same sorts of things are happening. So if you use Siri, Apple's thing, they obviously you have to actually press the button, I believe, so that's like something at least. But those recordings are kept for a while on Apple servers as well. So the things that you're saying are recorded, so just so you know. there was a very, very advanced piece of malware that's been detected, and they're claiming that it is the most advanced malware that has ever been detected, and it's basically they're calling the group of people that created this the Equation Group, but it's pretty much established that it is almost definitely the NSA, and it's a very advanced malware family. So the new examples of code that they've got of malware, it has a lot of similarities to Stuxnet and Flame. You know, we talked about Stuxnet before. And they use very targeted infection, so they don't just spread it out everywhere, but they specifically target certain people. So there was an instance where someone received a CD in the mail from a conference they'd attended, and it had been modified so that there was malware on that disk. So it looks like probably the mail was intercepted and it didn't happen at the conference end. So that's quite interesting, and not unlike the NSA, since as we know, the NSA intercepts like packages. So if you order Cisco routers, you'll get used to my Australian accent. If you receive networking equipment from a company in America, if the NSA think you're a person of interest, that may have been altered. Like they could change the firmware and stuff on it to insert malicious code to spy on you and stuff like that. But one of the very interesting things about this malware that's just been detected is that it actually writes to the hard drive firmware. So you can look at the hard drive as much as you like. Look at what's on the hard drive, stored on the platters. You will not find any malware in there because it's actually stored in the software that runs the hard drive, which is pretty much impossible for any antivirus, anti-malware software to actually look at. So it's very hard to detect that this has happened. And so it's very, very sophisticated. It also means if you format your hard drive, it's not going away. It's still in the firmware. And also some very, very cool or clever features, like it can jump air gaps. So if you've got a computer that's not connected to the internet, not even connected to a network, it does things like it'll copy itself onto a USB drive. When you take that USB drive onto the second computer, it infects that computer and has commands that it may have received, carries those commands out on that computer, gathers the information off, back up onto that USB drive. You take that USB drive, plug it back into your first computer, it checks whether there's any new commands, sends off the information it's gathered, and if it gets plugged back into that other computer, it might have some new things that it needs to do. So very, very clever stuff. Yeah, concerning, I guess would be one way to put it. So yeah, that's all recent. And if we look at some of the leaks that have happened from the NSA recently, it looks very much like the irate monk thing. So if you look at those documents that were leaked, I believe this is one of the Snowden leaks. You can see at the top of that paragraph it talks about implanting hard drive firmware. So that pretty much confirms, yeah.
That's the one where they're all laughing at us?
What?
NSA. Is that the document that's just been released?
No, this document was leaked a while ago.
Right, I know
but
Snowden has just released another one,
yeah,
where the NSA are just laughing at everyone. Because they know how to intercept, I think it was iMessage's encryption, they know how to intercept that and
right,
just completely destroy things like that.
Okay. I didn't know that. Is that a recent like,
yeah, it was on Anon HQ
okay.
Website yesterday. They
Yeah.
just released the story about yesterday.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty interesting. Another one. So this is the last story. Obviously not the last story, but the last one I'm going to talk about. A bank heist that happened. And it netted something like $300 million to $1 billion, depending on what source you read.
They say that it could possibly be like 3 times more than the actual.
Maybe even more. Some people are saying they might be being a bit generous with $1 billion, but yeah, a lot of money basically. So basically what happened, they sent a whole bunch of like spear phishing attacks again, so very targeted emails trying to trick people that work at banks, basically. So, you know, ideally managers and things, but just like all sorts of bank employees, hoping that one of them will end up infecting actual computers inside the bank. And once they did that, they just observed all the processes and things that happened on those computers and what it was that they had to, you know, where they clicked and what the process was to transfer money and all that sort of stuff. And then, after just observing for a while, they started to get some money out, basically. So they did things like sometimes they would actually increase someone's bank balance. So say I hacked into your account, it said £1,000 or whatever. You go, make that 10,000 and then transfer 9 of them back to me. And so then it starts looking like you might not notice that anything had happened if you're not keeping an eagle eye on your account balances, because actually it's the same money you thought they would be, but you know, the attacker's now got a bunch of money. Also just dispensing money out of ATMs. So money was just coming out, and I think there were some instances where people, innocent bystanders, basically just saw money coming out of ATMs. But the plan was basically they were at certain times someone would walk past, obviously with like a hoodie or something, and just like take that money and keep walking. So yeah, all sorts of things. So that was possibly the biggest recorded bank heist, I guess, in so far. So yeah, that's all happened within the last week. So if you're not